Hi, my name's Keith Cooper, Northlight Images, and in this video I'm going to talk about black and white printing on art papers with the Epson P700. Now the P700 is, for these purposes, identical to the P900. The P900 is just bigger, so I could make bigger prints. I'm making an A3 Plus print here, 13 inch by 19 inch. On the P900 I could produce an A2 size, so that's 17 inch width. But anyway, this is aimed at being a little bit more advanced than the normal just print black and white using the ABW mode, which is what I always recommend for printing black and white on the P700, P900. The paper I'm going to use is one from Photospeed in the UK. It is one of their signature range. It is a cotton etching 305 gram. Now the 305 gram weight of the paper should be familiar. If you're elsewhere in the world, look for papers, fine art papers, etching style papers at 305 grams or thereabouts, and you'll likely find something fairly similar. Now this is a box of it. Photospeed, by the way, as do a few other suppliers, will actually make custom ICC profiles for you if you buy the paper off them. However, I'm printing black and white, and I want to talk a bit about printing black and white images using the ABW mode. In particular, getting an accurate response, an accurate tonality. I won't be using soft proofing. Soft proofing to me is vastly overrated. It's used as an excuse not to understand what prints look like. To me, the result is the print, not what's on the screen. Now, this is an image I took some time ago in Colorado, and it's some aspen trees, and that to me is upland Colorado, the aspen trees, the aspen groves in the mountains. That just sums it up. It's black and white. I want a picture with a little bit of menace about it, because I always find the eyes on the trunks looking at you a little bit off-putting. I love the place, but this just captures the feel of what I want for it. Now, I could just print that as is. I could set, I've got a sheet of paper loaded here. It's a slightly roughened surface, the etching surface. It's a bright white. Well, it's not that bright, but it's not a natural white. Natural white colour papers in this sort of paper have more of a yellowish tinge to them, not quite so bright white. Now, I'll look in a moment at how you can tell that. A blue laser pointer will make the papers glow if they've got much OBA in it. That's an easy way of testing. But before I did any prints with this paper, because it's not an Epson paper, and I do this for Epson papers as well, I've got more coverage. I've got an article specifically looking at black and white on the 700, 900 that has a lot more graphs and details in it. So if you want more technical details, have a look there as well. I put a link to that in the notes for the video. Anyway, here is my standard black and white test image. Now, the black and white test image is produced specifically for testing black and white. Now, I've got a video about how to use this, lots of articles about how to use it as well. It has various things in it which tell me a lot about the quality I'm going to get from a black and white print. Now, here are two A4 size prints of it, both off one sheet here, chopped up after I've printed it. One is printed at the maximum print quality, and one is printed at the standard print quality. Now, for a sheet this size, it takes about 15-20 minutes to print at the highest quality. It takes about 8 minutes to print at the standard quality. So if you're in a hurry, you'd use the standard. But normally, you accept that the higher quality will take a bit longer. Is there a difference in it? Well, if you look at this particular version of the test image, you can see there is a grayscale bar across the top here. Now, this is for an automated scanning spectrophotometer, an X-ray I1ISIS that I've got, that I use for this. I've got versions of this which will work with scanners. You can even, if you want, have a go at taking a photograph of it, of a print, and working out linearity. There are trade-offs with some of the techniques, but this is just a very quick one. It takes just a minute or two to do the complete reading here. save the results, and I can then process that and get a curve. Now, I'll show the curve here, which is produced by the software. Ignore all the letters, the numbers and everything. What I'm really just looking for is the straightness of the L line. You can see there's a bit of a curve at the bottom, and that shows there is a slight crunching of the blacks. So the shadows will be slightly compressed with this. Now these prints are made using just the ABW print mode. Now I'm going to show when I do the print here using Epson print layout, because it's the same for Windows and for Macs, and it's easier to show the settings. You could use the ABW mode to print directly from Photoshop. No doubt you can do it from Lightroom as well, but I don't use Lightroom at all. I've got it loaded up here. This is Photoshop. This is running on my laptop, so it's running an oldish version, Photoshop CS6. CS6 does everything I need to produce an image like this. In fact, the original prints I made from some of these would have been made using CS2, CS3, whatever. You do not need many functions to actually produce black and white stuff here. But anyway, back to this. Now, these look the same. They're going to look absolutely the same on a video. There's just not the range and quality on a video to show any difference. If I look very carefully, and this is, there's a target here, like a bullseye patch. If I look very carefully at that, and I need stronger glasses than these for checking that, I can see that at the standard quality, the black gradient is smoother than it looks on the highest quality. Now, I suspected this was going to be the case anyway, because if you have a look at the review I wrote of this in the black and white article, I've got all the details of these graphs and things like that, and it shows that sometimes the standard quality looks better than the highest quality. Now, the black on the highest quality is a tiny bit darker than the black on here. It's not visible. It's in the numbers. It's at that level where, yeah, the number is slightly bigger on one than the other. It makes no feasible difference. Looking at detail, it's fine on both, but the real giveaway is I look at that curve, those L's, I can see there's a little bit of crunching of shadow, but be careful once you start measuring things that you don't let the numbers take on a life of their own. I've seen countless debates about arbitrary levels of precision, people wanting to work in 16-bit, 32-bit, etc., etc., purely driven by the numbers. Now, the numbers are important. I use them for getting an idea of what's going on. The numbers tell me that both print settings here would be fine, but that the linearity of the standard setting on this paper, and it's because this is not a standard paper, I've done this just for this PhotoSpeed paper, that the linearity of the image is absolutely fine on this one here. So I do not need to make any adjustments. In particular, there's one or two little bits of stuff, I've covered all the detail of this image, but there's an image here, and there's my name printed on it. It says copyright 2005 Keith Cooper. If I can clearly read my name right up to the R at the end of it, I may need to look a bit carefully, then that tells me the shadow detail's okay. The real key is to look for unevenness in the bullseye and look for whether you can read here. Now, there may be slight unevenness elsewhere. If you find that, there is the option of correcting it with a curve, but I would say unless it really needs correcting, it's often easier just to leave it. Now, these scales at the top here, there are 51 steps, so these are 2% steps in brightness in the gradient at the top here. You might think, oh, I can use those and I can make a correction curve. Well, I could, but for the fact we're dealing with imprecision in measurement, we're dealing with, when you're black and white, there are limited ranges of alteration of tone, so that you can actually make things worse by trying to make it too accurate. Now, if you are producing prints that rely on accuracy, so for technical purposes, then by all means go down this route and have a look at how these curves affect things. However, if, like me, you're interested in making prints that look good, you use this to advise what you're doing, not control it. And that's the key emphasis on it. But anyway, that's the test print. I know now that this paper and this printer works very well. There are no colours on here. I've got LED based lighting in here, and this looks pretty neutral, which is good, much as I expect. Yeah, the P900, P700 are pigment ink printers with extra greys. They're fine. Anyway, let's see about making the print itself. Here's the image, and I'll come back after this to some of the details on the editing for this image, which do make a difference in the print. But this is just the printing side of it. There is the image opened in Photoshop. Now, here's one I did earlier, and here is the image. I've opened it in Epson print layout. I've selected Advanced B&W photo mode. I've selected color toning neutral. I've left it at the tone of darker. You may think, why set it to dark? I've left everything at its default setting because that works. It's also the settings I used on my test image for that, and that's fine. So I have the image here. It has a border. I've printed it. I've set the size that I want. I've set the paper type here to Epson Ultra Smooth Fine Art, which is the closest sort of paper I'm going to get to this. Now, in looking at this paper and testing it and doing other test prints first, I know all these. I know that standard quality will do fine. Everything is set fine. All I need to do is just select print there. Now it's going to take a moment or two to come through on here. It's a slowish laptop. There's a cup of tea I prepared earlier. So it's sending print data and it will start up. The paper here, I've loaded sheet paper in. I've set the paper type as Ultra Smooth Fine Art and the size at A3+ on the screen here. You don't have to do it, the software can override it. I personally prefer to set the paper type here and on here, just as a sort of reminder that I've got everything right. Now, I change papers a lot. I change printers quite a lot when I'm doing the testing, so it's perhaps more likely I'm going to make mistakes, but just in case, we've got that. Now, the paper itself, there's no curl or anything on it. I've checked that the leading edge corners are not bent up at all, because if they're bent up when they first come through, you can occasionally get a slight head mark on it. The head may just touch on the paper, which can ruin the entire print just from one touch of it like that. So it's worth just checking that the corners are not bent upwards. Incidentally, the paper is packed with print side up. It doesn't say so, but if you're ever unsure of which side of paper to print on, lightly moisten your finger. If you just touch the paper, both sides, you'll find one side feels slightly tackier than the other. I don't lick it much, but you can just feel a slight difference in tackiness, and that'll tell you the tacky side is the print side. It's because of the coating that's on the paper, which is designed for accepting the inks. But anyway, here it is on its way down here. Aspen Trunks, PSD, it says 5 minutes. I can have a look. Yeah, there are various bits. There's the picture on its way of that. I've got the light switched on inside the printer, and I can see it's printing just fine. So we'll come back to this in a moment. It's the leading edge of the print coming out, and there are no marks. It is particularly annoying if you do a print like this and the head just touches the corner of the paper as it comes through. So check that your paper's okay. Sometimes paper will take a bit of a curl. Take it out of the box, flatten it with a book or something, some thin paper or tissue paper on top of it overnight if need be, if you have problems with paper crease. But in general, avoid paper with curl and crease in it, because it just encourages it's just the head will touch it, and if it does, you will get black marks on the corners. Now, if you are mounting this behind a mat or something like that, then well, you might not mind. But personally, I hate it if I get sort of an ink splotch on a print like this. So take care. And here it looks nearly done. A look at the print, it's bang on neutral. It looks exactly as I wanted it to. That's the whole point of black and white printing. It looks fine on the screen, but what does it look like as a print? Now, that looks pretty good. Now, it so happens that this image, it's been converted to black and white. I don't recall the exact method here. I probably just used a channel mixer or something like that to get a black and white image. This image has had a few curves added to it. Now, if I go back to the image in Photoshop, there's the image there. Now, that is not the out of the camera image. What adjustments have I made for it? Well, if I show a print I made earlier, this is a print, straight conversion, black and white. Now I'm going to try and show the two here in the hope that they actually show up on the screen. Okay, there is my version I've just printed. Now that one I've used curves and masked adjustment layers to change the tonality a bit, and there is the unadjusted one. Now I say unadjusted, it's been set for levels and general contrast when I processed the raw image. Now the thing is, when you look at the two, there's not necessarily that much difference. I've got several layers here, and what I do is I will show the basic image. I'll inset it into the video here, and then I'll turn off my adjustment layers. But if I just go through this and turn off the adjustment layers here, you won't actually see probably that much on the screen. There we go, there's another one, there's another one. There are 4 masked curve adjustment layers. What am I doing in this picture? Well, first of all, I'm emphasizing closer trees, which are sharper trees. This image has had a little bit of sharpening applied. I'll not go into the mechanisms for that, but it has had a bit of sharpening applied where the image is sharp. So this tree here, I want that to be the key element of it. So I want other things to be slightly darker, this to be slightly brighter. If I look there, you can see they're slightly different. Now, all I've done is just add in an adjustment curve to the whole image, mask it, and then paint in where I want the effect done. So effectively, I have lightened this tree, I've lightened this tree here. They just make a bit of a difference to it. Now, I've got articles that look at masking and stuff. It's quite tricky to show in videos, so I would say have a look at some of the links as well if you're interested in this. This is not using any fancy black and white processing. This is not using contrast masking or anything like that. This is the basics of good old-fashioned dodging and burning that you'd do in the darkroom. I can do it much more accurately and I can do it much more repeatedly on this, but I'm using the same techniques here that I would have adopted if this was a black and white film shot and I was printing it in the darkroom. It'd be a lot more hassle doing it, and you know, I don't really want to go back to film, but my film knowledge from years ago is coming through in this particular picture. Now I've got another image here. This is also in Colorado. This is a mountain storm. It's up in one of the higher bits of Colorado. It was a superb day. Clouds zooming about all over the place, heavy rain fronts going backwards, forwards. There's the image there. There's the print of that. Now I'll put that one back there. Now, with this one, this was too bright, so this there's a curve has darkened this area here to bring up detail. There's another curve just along the bottom here to make sure that the trees show up. In fact, there's several curves in this one alone. It's the difference between getting a basic picture, and if I turn off once again some of the curves, turn off the top one there, turn off the bottom, we've got the same basic picture, but the emphasis. I'm using the curves to change the emphasis. So we'll go back and put that back there. So what's my takeaway that I hope you would have from this is, one, black and white works a treat on the P700, P900. Pigment inks work best. It would be, pigment inks are my choice for black and white, particularly on papers like this. The paper is a very lightly textured paper. Now, I've chosen a paper that is white and has a distinct whiteness about it. It's not glow in the dark type white, copier paper type things, but it's a brighter paper. If you didn't want the slight amount of optical brighteners that are in this particular paper, you could use a natural paper. Now, the natural paper would tend to have a slightly warmer colour to it. For some things, it actually works better. So certainly architectural images where I've got stonework and things like that, I find that the slightly warmer tone of a natural paper rather than a white paper like this make a difference. So it's really about printing using ABW to get the easy black and white and the good quality black and white, the image that you start with, and above all remembering it's the print that counts. So it doesn't matter how it looks in a way on here. By using the test images, I'm fairly certain that what I see here is going to translate to a print. But the real key to it is thinking about your prints. What do you want your prints to look like? So there we have it. Black and white printing on the P700. Hope this has been of some use. I've got lots and lots of articles on the Northlight website and some videos as well about the black and white side of photography printing and the photography itself. So if you're curious about that, have a look. Please do feel free to ask questions. Subscribe to the channel if you find it useful. I'll have more covering printers and the photography behind them. And hopefully this is giving you a bit of an idea about how I go about doing black and white prints. Thank you.